Welcome back for video 2 of the Starting Out Working in College Fundraising podcast. This week we are going to go over my first week on the job, just kind of day-to-day, the key pieces that I went through. And then to wrap that up, we're gonna dive a little bit more into what happened on the Saturday at the end of that week, which was my first away game with Penn football. So excited to take you all through it, and here we go. So just to get into some of the key things that happened during the week for me, obviously, first and foremost is the first day on the job. So got a nice little welcome from the staff and got to see everybody again, kind of get more comfortable. Obviously I'd met them in interviews, but that was awesome. And then along with that, I went and picked up my employee ID, spoke with HR and gave them some paperwork they still needed. Really just kind of all the basic stuff that you do when you start any job. And then looking through the rest of that week, I did some trainings, HR, and signed up for our CRM system trainings, which is what we use to just track all of our information, all our conversations with donors, so on and so forth. And then another key piece was meeting all the football staff. So that is the only sport that I'm assigned to at this point in time, while they figure out the rest of my portfolio with some reshuffling that happened with the staff between my interview process and when I started. So I got to meet the football staff though, super great. Met the head coach, director of operations, and a few other key people that I will be working with on a pretty regular basis. So as far as key events go, that first week, that really covers it. Not having access to everything and still kind of learning the ropes, very much so. There's just not a whole lot that I can do, but one of the really exciting things that happened was obviously getting to go on that road trip with the football team at the end of that week. So for this first away road trip with Penn football, just to preface everything, we were playing against the University of Delaware, a team that is making the transition to FBS from FCS. So for those who aren't aware, that's like going from the second tier to tier 1. They are in the middle of that transition, but the point is that they have more scholarship money and more scholarships in general than Penn, partially because the University of Pennsylvania, as an Ivy League institution, does not offer athletic scholarships. But needless to say, we were pretty big underdogs, really just going for the experience, and because we do have a lot of donors typically come out to these games against bigger opponents, just because we don't really play a whole lot of large opponents or prominent name schools very often. So just to give you kind of a rundown of what that day looked like, got the schedule here. So at 1:30, I was picked up by our major gift officer, and we headed down about an hour and a half to Newark, Delaware, where the stadium was. About 3 o'clock, we arrived there at Delaware Stadium. We got into the parking lot, and as we were going in, just made sure that we talked to the parking attendant and said, hey, we are going to have donors showing up. We'll do our best to give them parking passes before they come see you. But on the off chance that that doesn't happen, if somebody mentions that they are here as a donor from the University of Pennsylvania, just know that we have them covered. So always great to have that line of communication open with people on site of the team that you're playing. As soon as we parked, we kind of walked around the area a little bit and made our way over to the stadium to meet with our director of football operations and pick up the sideline credentials. So in this case, tickets were sent out electronically beforehand. We didn't have to worry about that really too much unless somebody had an issue accessing their account and accessing their tickets. So the biggest responsibility for us was obviously the parking passes, which we printed out at the office prior to going down, and then the sideline credentials. So for this game, again, we had a lot more donors than we typically would for a road game. So I believe we ordered like 30 or 35 sideline credentials. It was a heavy lift, which is part of the reason that I went down, even though it was just my first week. So from 3 to 3:30, it was just making sure we were totally familiar with the area, the stadium, how people are supposed to get to the sideline, and where to tell people to go to get to the parking lot. Just kind of that basic information so that people don't get confused when they're trying to show up. You know, the goal is to make the process as easy and fun as possible for your donors and your alumni. So then about 4 o'clock, the parking lots opened. We started to have some of our alumni and donors and players' parents arriving. So we happened to park like 3 spots away from where our parent tailgate ended up being. Not planned at all. They weren't there when we got there. That's just kind of how things ended up. Our car wasn't marked with University of Pennsylvania lettering or magnets or anything. So that was pretty neat. So we swung by there while we were waiting for our donors and alumni to show up. And then as people started to call us and let us know that they were getting close, we went back towards kind of the main road that leads up to the parking lot driveway. And we would meet them, hand them the parking pass and say, hey, we'll come find you in the parking lot and around to hand off your sideline credential and make sure you're all taken care of there. So at that point, myself and our major gift officer kind of split up a little bit. I stayed over by the road and handed out the parking passes. And then he took care of finding them, handing them sideline credentials, and interacting with them a little bit more, just because I obviously, am not super familiar with them yet, and it would just really didn't make much sense for me to be that main point of contact beyond just handing off something. So that went well, and that went from about 4 to 6 p.m. until kickoff. At that point, we did go into the stadium, and something that I was told is that, we eat last, obviously, as the staff. So, and then also, if it's possible, try to kind of keep that tucked away, because you want people to think that you're focused on your job, which we absolutely are. So from 6 until about 6:15, we took some time, went and grabbed a hot dog and some fries, and then just sat off to the side and ate a little bit, replenished, had some water, which was much needed. It was a very hot day. And then as soon as we were done with that, we headed over to the sideline. At that point, most of our donors and alumni were either on the sideline or up in the stands where their tickets were. And really from that point until the end of the game, it was just going around, obviously for me, meeting people, and for our major gift officer, touching base, making sure everybody was doing well. Hello, hey, good to see you again, first game of the season. Just kind of that general conversation and engagement. Then obviously getting to watch the game from the sideline with the team is always, a pretty crazy and cool experience, especially to have it in a stadium like the University of Delaware's, where it's a little bigger and more well attended than most of the games that we'll probably have this year. So that was awesome. And then, not after the game, there's really not a whole lot for us to do. So we said our goodbyes, headed back to the car, and made the drive back to Philadelphia. But at the end of the day, I think we got back around 10:30, 10:45. So you're looking at 9+ hour day, and that's on a Saturday. So just kind of goes to show that, as it is in the sports world across the board, but maybe even more so in college sports, you're going to have those long weekend work days. But really, if you love it, which I do, it was a whole lot of fun to be on the sideline and be talking college football with people all day. So I've got a picture here that I'll show you, but other than that, that pretty much wraps up, this video and talking about my first week. I'll look forward to touching base with you guys about my second week coming up in the next video. Thanks.